Richie Rich was a comic that started in the 60s from Harvey Comics, which was a company that made kid-friendly comics that mostly had a humorous focus. Richie Rich was their most popular character by far. He was basically a kid who had all the money in the world, but had a good heart and was always getting into all sorts of adventures along with his dog Dollar and his butler Cadbury, who was the stereotypical British butler but who could turn into a badass in a moment's notice. These comics were pretty entertaining. Though when I was a kid, I preferred superhero comics, I got a kick out of the more comedic stuff as well. Anyway, flash forward to the 90s and Richie Rich is played by Macaulay Culkin. Yeah, I know, he's weird looking, but so is the character. Anyway, the film gives you a brief backstory showing the Rich family and how stupidly wealthy they are, and how their son Richie grows up being the richest kid in the world, but is definitely not a spoiled brat. In this sense, they were very, very good at capturing the essence of the comics. The bad guy, played by John Larroquette, works for Mr. Rich and tries to kill them by blowing up their plane, but Richie wasn't on the plane at the time, so instead of wiping out the entire family so he can steal their money, he basically just gave Richie a really good reason to expose his plot and stop him. Along the way, Richie is also struggling with making friends. While representing his father at the opening of a factory, he runs into some blue-collar kids, and he wants to hang out with them because they like baseball and he likes baseball, but these kids aren't so interested in having shared interests, they just dislike him because he's rich and therefore is probably a dick. It's kind of sad because Cadbury literally has to bribe these kids to hang out with Richie, though along the way they actually start to like him because he's not a dick. This is where the movie gets it right. The tagline for the comics was, "The Poor Little Rich Boy," and the writers took the challenge of taking a kid who was so rich that he literally had two of everything and made you feel sorry for him. And that's what the movie does. The plot is also serviceable for a kid's movie. It's a pretty straightforward crime caper with no major flaws. But there's one big problem. A big one. And it's what turns what is otherwise a fine movie into a bad one. The movie gets the character right, the setting is spot on, it has the adventure, it has the right themes, but what it misses out on big time is the humor. And this is a major problem because the entire point of Richie Rich is to make you laugh, and this movie fails miserably. Every joke is obvious, dull-witted, and falls flat, and the actors go through the motions and emotions well enough, but no one has the proper comic timing to even help the dull jokes shine even a little bit. The one person in this film who seems to be trying hard is Jonathan Hyde, who gives enough British stiff upper lip and deadpan to make you at least acknowledge that the things he's saying are supposed to be funny. It's just that they aren't. It kind of saddens me because the movie got so many things right, but at the end of the day, an unfunny comedy is a failure. I give it a little leeway for trying hard and not being offensively bad by any means, but a failure is a failure no matter how nice I'm feeling. So it gets a 4 out of 10.